welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys are doing well and you're thriving post-eclipse. That one's a bit of a doozy. We're still feeling it a little bit today, so I hope you guys are hanging in there. This is going to be the astro weather both for the week of October 29th through November the 5th. And we're going to talk a little bit about the November 2023 astrology. We're going to take a look at some of the most important transits for the month ahead. Thank you guys for joining me. If you're new, welcome. I'm Candace. I'm a Western astrologer. I focus both on working with the Sabian Symbols as well as tarot to better understand what's going on in the cosmos for all of us collectively. If you like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you smash the bell button below so you're subscribed. Those of you guys who think you're subscribed, please make sure you're subscribed. I'm hearing some crazy stories about being desubscribed. And do drop me a thumbs up if you like this content, if you can see me, and leave me a comment below, especially if this is your first time watching. Where are you tuning in from? I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so couple things. I have to get my announcements out. Number one, I'm officially booked for all of 2023. So I'm a busy lady. Generally, September through January is probably one of the busier times of the year. But I feel like since 2020, it's just been like nonstop. I have been slammed. So just giving you guys a heads up, my private one-on-one sessions are now beginning in January and February of 2024. So if you know that you've got a birthday coming up in the new year, or maybe you want to book something to check in for the new year, I recommend doing that now. Also, you can catch me on a live. So we're here doing lives on Fridays. So if you can't get in before the end of the year, we alternate between tarot and astrology. So don't sweat it. You can meet me here 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and you can get a donation-based reading if you have a question. Or I offer reports on my website. So you can always choose a 1 or a 3 question offer. You'll get a response within 7 to 10 days. I send you an audio file and I'll let you know what I think based off of what your question is. And you guys, she's finally done. I finished my astrology calendar for 2024. I worked really hard on this during the Venus retrograde. I put a lot of love into it. It's been a several person job, but we got it done. This is the astrology calendar for 2024 for Beyond the Veil. It's awesome. It's 12 months on a printed calendar that you guys can get, and it's going to give you recommendations for obviously each and every one of the 12 signs. So we do a little bit on each zodiac sign. We talk about the herbs, oils, incense offering, all the recommendations, a little bit of like ritual recommendations. Plus, you're also going to get the transits for each individual day. So if you guys are interested in picking up a calendar for 2024 or you want to gift one, they are now available for sale on my website. We have a physical print also, as well as a digital print. So if you want both, you can get the digital and the solid print in one. So everybody who buys one of these is going to get a digital copy. Check out my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com if you guys would like to get one of those before the new year. All right, so like I said, this is going to be a twofer. We're going to talk about the transits for the next week, and then we're also going to talk about November. But major headlines would be post-eclipse feels. You guys are going to be feeling more lunar transits taking place today. That is still kind of impacting us, and we're going to be feeling some of the aftershocks of this particular eclipse really all the way into the new year. I'll talk a little bit why when we get to that in a second. We're also going to see a number of planets that are moving through the sign of Scorpio that are going to make oppositions to Jupiter. So things are going to feel a little big this week. We're going to have some big reactions, some big awareness, but also Jupiter is a planet of abundance and faith. So there's big opportunities for rewards, followed by some oppositions to Uranus and Taurus. So there's going to be some sudden changes, some shocks and surprises. This is going to be taking place in financial signs. So we've got Taurus, which represents physical resources and abundance, ruled by Venus. And then we've got Scorpio, which represents releasing, letting go, or joint resources, ruled by Mars. And in a way, they're kind of finishing up the eclipse energies within these two polar signs. And then at the end of the month, we are going to see that we're going to move into Mercury retrograde shadow. Now, don't worry, the retrograde's not going to take place until December, but you will start feeling the effects of the Mercury retrograde right around the time of the full moon in Gemini. Going to be a little bit of a hairy time with communication. We're going to see as Mercury is coming into shadow, it's going to form one of several squares to Neptune where there is likely going to be some communication issues. There could be some tall tales, especially with Mercury and Sag, and some distortion issues. Okay, so we're going to start feeling the static of that at the end of November. So let's go ahead and dig deep. Let's take a look at what's going on for this week, and we'll kind of go from there. Well, if you guys are watching on the 29th, like I said, happy post-eclipse. I hope you guys are doing well after this eclipse. I will tell you that today is still a bit of like a funky day, okay? The moon, as we're waking up, is still in the sign of Taurus. In fact, it's sandwiched between Jupiter and Uranus. So Jupiter is that big feeling, Moon, Jupiter, and Taurus. The eclipse was in Taurus, lunar eclipse, full moon, and the conjunction to Jupiter is generally pretty sweet. However, we've got some other things at play today. The moon's going to be heading towards a conjunction with Uranus where it's going to feel like it's emotionally evolving. There is some sudden shifts revolving around our feelings, especially around Taurus things, relationships, pleasure, resources, value. I've been saying for the last month, I'm really watching what's happening Saturday and Sunday as we go into Monday, the 30th, because I think there may be some financial implications as a result of like worldly events post-eclipse. I'm filming this early, so I'm filming this a couple days before we even get to this. So even I don't know what's going to happen yet. But this morning on the 29th, the moon comes into an opposition, right, with Mercury and Mars. That was factored into the eclipse that happened last night, but just know when the moon is in opposition to Mercury, it's harder to find the words to emotionally relate. Mercury's moving through Scorpio, so it's intense, passionate, and very secretive. And Mars is there. So the Mercury-Mars conjunction has actually been setting up. It's setting up today. So Mercury is about information, relaying things. It can be about data. It can be about communication. And Mars is passionate, intense, and quick moving. So as we see these two planets come together, right? Mars, the North Node ruler. For me, this is a week of exposure, of truth, of shocks and surprises and awareness. So if it hasn't already hit you, boy, it's still coming. So just be aware of that. I keep telling people, don't ask questions you don't want answers to this week because somebody's going to give you an answer, especially with all of these, planets in opposition to one another. I think of like the Sun, Mercury, Mars as like a little detective, and it's a very powerful kind of action-packed stellium of planets, which is very focused. Mars leads the pack. Mercury will pull ahead, but Mars leads the pack. So there's action and communication, and the Sun is shining a light on where we need to kind of make moves. I'm calling this month No Shade November because I really don't feel like, first of all, we don't need any more shade. We've had enough that's gone on the last month or so. But the Sun, I think, is really shining a light on everything that's going on behind the scenes. And it's exposing things. It's helping almost keep us honest. And there's a lot of accountability, I think, that comes with the oppositions to Jupiter. I also feel like when we look at the Jupiter-Moon-Uranus conjunction, this represents some huge shift in awareness. Moon-Uranus can be about like psychically waking up, or it can be about, the emotions suddenly kind of running high. But the Jupiter conjunction can represent optimism. So we've got a lot of polar energies yesterday, today, and really into tomorrow. But where we see oppositions, 180 degrees, they are relational. So you really want to take a look at where is Taurus in your chart, okay? If you find that house, look at all the polar energy on the other side, which is kind of bringing some sort of action, which is helping you become more aware, maybe more finely in tune emotionally to what's going on in the shadows. Now, something else we're going to see today is we're going to start to feel the trine between not just the moon conjunct Uranus, but the moon trine Venus. Not a bad aspect. The moon is, technically connected to Venus because it's in a Venusian sign. Venus is still moving through Virgo, so we are still focusing on what we need to nurture, what we need to care for, what we need to clean up. We're still willing to do a lot of work for the things that we love. The positive is that a moon trine Venus does allow us to kind of lean into relationships more. It does allow us to tap into other people's needs, but this is in a physical kind of earthly manner, right? We've got planets that are moving through Taurus and Virgo and Capricorn. So this is going to be about showing love in a very physical, tangible, practical way. On one hand, I feel inclined to tell you guys to like kick back and relax this Sunday and to really do your best to try to practice self-care. Grounding techniques are really wonderful. Working in the garden, you know, putting your feet on a grounding mat, doing some yoga, working with herbs or crystals can be really helpful. So kind of aromatherapy, actually. I'm, you know, thinking about this Sunday, looking at this being like, okay, time to get all of that stuff out for the aftermath of this particular eclipse, because I do feel like with Mercury and Mars coming into conjunction, it is picking up the energy of the North Node in Aries, and it's basically saying, you know, I'm afraid to change. How do I do that? Or how do I open myself up to feeling kind of calm and collected in the midst of some of these really significant rumbles that are coming up during the eclipse? Fear, shadow work, unwillingness to want to change, right? We've got a lot of planets in fixed signs, and so it is going to represent where we can kind of get stubborn and get in our own way. So work with the moon in a trine to Venus today. It's going to really allow you to open up to healing. Venus in Virgo wants us to heal or perfect something. So if you're working with, you know, healthy foods, if you're working with crystals, if you're working with massage, anything that's about physical touch or wellness can be really helpful to kind of better manage these energies. Now, like I said, Mercury and Mars are going to come into a conjunction, and it's actually happening at 11 degrees of Scorpio, direct opposition to Jupiter and Taurus. And so it's almost like we're having to really confront the monsters in the closet this week. There is a lot of looking at things going like, okay, this is where I want to be in spring of 2024. I want this big, beautiful, abundant life. And to have that, we have to really come to a sense of awareness of where we need to kind of get out of our own way. For a lot of us, I keep saying, you know, Scorpio season, we're going to get sick of our shit. We're going to get sick of our own shit. Pun intended, because of Scorpio, where we're finally going to say, you know what, I'm breaking free. I'm cutting this off, or I'm finally shaking this habit or letting this thing go that like no longer serves me. It's a anything goes type of weekend. So those of you guys who have been watching my videos the last week or so, I've been saying how this particular eclipse with the opposition to Mars and then the conjunction to Uranus, it's so good for like banishing work. It's so good for uncrossing work. If you feel like you've been blocked, if you've been stuck in a situation, this is the eclipse that's going to shake you out of it. And as we get into the new moon that's going to happen in Scorpio later in November, we're also going to have an opportunity to set brand new intentions, and it's going to be like, get ready, go, because it'll be in conjunction to Mars. So the next 2 weeks is perfect for making change. Unfortunately, those of us who have been dragging our feet and unwilling to make the changes, we're going to get a swift kick in the butt that's going to kind of push us along. And sometimes fear kind of pops up to kind of say like, okay, are you ready to evolve? That's what I love about Scorpio season, especially when Mars goes through Scorpio. It gives us the opportunity to really release and trust something, trust the process. So as we get into Sagittarius season, we're going to realize, okay, there is a bridge to the other side. There is a bigger reason or a purpose for why some of these things are ending. There's better things on the horizon, and we just have to trust and have faith in the process. So right now, some of you guys, I know you're kind of spinning still from this eclipse, but I promise you it's going to get a lot better. So let's take a look. This Mercury-Mars conjunction, you know, I believe I'm trying to remember, I think I did a Mars in Scorpio video. I don't remember if I did a Mercury in Scorpio video, but let's take a look at Scorpio 12, because it'll be conjunct at 11 and change. And let's see what that says. All right, so those of you guys who aren't aware, this is the Sabian Symbol book. If you guys are ever wondering what books I'm using on my channel, click the link in the description below. It's going to give you a whole series of links. There is an Amazon list there that I have all of the books that I use. Okay, so we've got Scorpio 12. Here we go. So Scorpio 12, an embassy ball. The keyword is display. Formal maneuvers. The symbol speaks to a social ritual, and its highest, the opportunity it brings to each individual to recognize himself, whether or not his perceptions and hopes and expectations that first moved him to pledge or affiliate himself with a particular organization or cause has realized or been met. The image of the embassy ball is associated with politics and government. The dance alludes to the intricate steps and fancy footwork that must be learned in any efficient social maneuvering. Implicit in this symbol is the dramatization of values. Here, the political process of a group exposed is either means to encourage and develop personal excellence among its members or a tool to exploit the skills and resources of the weak and disenfranchised. The emphasis on this symbol is a revelation through theatrical exaggeration and the chance to see things for what they really are. At its highest, it represents the natural poise and grace that facilitates group integrity and stability. Watch for arrogance and class consciousness and the use of tactics to achieve desired ends. Okay, so the accent on lavish show and formality activities center on special events that require you to look and perform your best. Your greatest advantage lies in following the lead of those who are in the know. Let others speak first and then make your move. Guard against committing any faux pas by failing to adequately inform yourself beforehand on the proper protocol or custom for some important ritual or occasion. Stepping stones would be formality, dance, grandeur, social drama, politics, show, pomp, ceremony, splendor, pageantry, affection, and maneuvering. Okay. So something that I'm thinking about is just the sheer number of planets hitting 11 degrees, right? So when the eclipse happened, it was at 5. But when we see the moon, which was very early this morning, okay, around 2:30 or 3 o'clock Central Time, I'm Central. But in the middle of the night, stuff that could have been happening where something suddenly like escalates. Uranus is connected to 11 degrees. So we have 11, 11, 11, 11. Obviously, given the state of what's going on in the world right now, with some of the action that's going on with, some of the wars that are currently taking place, or some of the invasions that are currently taking place, I do assume, I hope not, but I do assume that we're going to see some escalation of something that's been happening last night or this morning. And so I think maybe the moon coming into conjunction with Uranus is going to be the shocks and surprises of the awareness of just how much it's affecting the masses. Uranus is connected to 11. Aquarius is connected to 11. It's where things suddenly speed up. We see some significant shift. Well, Venus is the dispositor of this. So as the moon is coming further into Taurus and it's trining Venus, we're going to be hearing more about Venus in Virgo-related themes. Health matters, stuff relating, I think, to unions and negotiations, stuff in regards to nursing, and I wonder if there's going to be stuff with nurses' unions, people in uniforms, health protocols, the list goes on. But it also could be about news that potentially activates Venus in this particular sign, where we're finding out that there is issues revolving around the health of jobs or markets or food or resources, because Venus is moving through a sign where it's rather uncomfortable. So I feel like I'm curious to see if the Sabian symbol plays out quite literally, if we're starting to hear that, there is some incentive for there to be like fundraising balls and other things to like raise money for certain events that are going on in the world, or for certain political candidates. I guess we'll have to see. But I just know when planets hit 11, stuff gets weird, and we've got way too many 11s here. So I'm curious what's happening in the world as we're waking up on the morning of the 29th, as you guys are watching this. Now, the moon's going to keep moving through Taurus. It's going to pick up a trine to Venus in the afternoon. Okay, so that's kind of sweet, feeling a little bit more so stable. But it's also going to be coming into a conjunction with Uranus. So remember, the moon was already in opposition to Mercury and Mars. So there was already some sense of something not really fitting. We might have felt like, you know, some people are moving forward a little bit more quickly than what we're comfortable with. We might feel like we're being pressured and it's hard to kind of communicate because when the moon is in Taurus, we want to take our time. So, you know, as the moon starts connecting with Uranus and trining Venus, it's kind of like there is this sense of needing to adapt to certain circumstances and certain things that have shifted. We may not feel as fulfilled. I feel like Venus going through Virgo is a lot of like, okay, but we need more. You know, Venus is the ruler of the South Node. It's like we're getting what we need, not necessarily what we want. So we may not be totally pleased with some of the turn of events that are taking place basically today in general, especially with trines to Venus in Virgo. I feel like people may be a little bit more critical of relationships. They may be more focused on, you know, whether or not they're feeling like their needs are met. So, you know, when the moon's in Taurus, how things feel, how things taste, and physical security is a huge theme. So essentially with the, you know, trines that we're seeing between the moon and Venus, we're really picking up the feeling of Venus being in a position of not necessarily having what she wants, but having what she needs. So I think a lot of people are going to be reflecting on looking at what events are taking place in the world this week going, wow, I should be more appreciative of what I have. I've definitely been feeling that a lot this last week, just watching the news and seeing some stuff that was going on with the major storms that they actually had in Mexico and Acapulco. Not seeing a lot about this on the news, but apparently they had some pretty gnarly tropical storms. I believe it was a hurricane. They said it was upwards of almost 200 miles per hour. And you see like the footage in helicopters of them surveying the ground. And you see these huge buildings that are just like totaled, all kinds of stuff that was, you know, stories high, windows blown in, all kinds of stuff like ruined. And yeah, it's that's the kind of stuff that we see when we see Uranus contacts. We can see major events revolving around shifts with the planet, with the Earth. It's not just storms. I think more storms are coming from the aspects to Neptune or maybe Saturn, but Earth kind of shaking events that has lots of physical disruptions, right, Taurus? Anyway, so that's the 29th. In a nutshell, if we take the moon now into Monday the 30th, we're going to start to see early in the morning, the moon is separating from Uranus and it's going to start forming a trine with Pluto. So there is some profound change and transformation. I like the moon trine Pluto on Monday morning. I feel like this is about you know, kind of adapting to change, getting down to business, feeling empowered, and still feeling some aspects from Venus as well. So it's rather nice. The only thing that you're really going to see that's going to take place on Monday outside of this particular, you know, trine to Pluto is a sextile to Neptune. So it's allowing us to stay connected to our vision, feeling kind of divinely guided as we kind of plug along on Monday morning. Now, in the morning, we're going to see the moon's ingress into Gemini. That's going to happen somewhere in the later morning, depending on where you are. And as the moon moves into Gemini, it's immediately going to be met with a square to Saturn. So that's going to be somewhere around 11 o'clock Central, noon Eastern, later morning on the West Coast. This makes me feel like scheduling issues, delays, challenges in communication. Somehow something is shifting when we experience the moon in Gemini because it's a mutable sign. I think it's also picking up on the really strong energy, because this is ruled by Mercury, of the Mercury-Mars conjunction. So feeling rushed, feeling frustrated. All of this Scorpio is 6 signs away from the moon. So I definitely feel like we can have some changes of plans that can have us feeling a little mentally frazzled. Not the best time for communication, travel, signing things, like being rushed through things. Every single time the moon goes through any of the mutable signs this year, especially when it's in Gemini, I feel like this is a little bit more challenging because Saturn has kind of like the upper hand with this particular square. So watch for things late morning, midday to kind of hit a little bit of a snag in regards to planning. The moon's going to keep moving through Gemini. We're going to see that through the evening. comes out of the square with Saturn, and then we wake up in the morning on Tuesday the 31st. Got a lot of stuff kind of going on today, so let's break it down. Probably the first thing that really kind of piques my interest is just as the moon goes through Gemini on Tuesday, there is a whole slew of inconjuncts to Scorpio. So the inconjunct or the quincunx is something trying to reconcile, can almost feel like a blind spot. And while the sun's going through Scorpio, we're really focused on Mars and Pluto. Well, the sun, Mars, Mercury are conjunct, so we're feeling passionate, tapped in, and like we have a goal in mind. We are very fixated on being able to uncover something, or we're really mentally focused. And then we've got this moon in Gemini that's a little scattered and not playing so nicely with all of this Scorpio. So unfortunately, for most of the morning into the afternoon, we have this inconjunct. Scheduling issues, delays, agitation, frustration, especially with communication. And I think maybe the Scorpio energies don't deal so well with like adapting to change. So there's that. When the moon's in Gemini and it's in that funky angle to Mercury, I think there can be some blind spots with communication with other people. All right, so that moon's going to keep moving through Gemini. It is also going to be Venus trine Uranus. Okay, I like that for some rather unusual events or Halloween costumes, maybe some Halloween costume malfunctions. I don't know. At least Venus is in a harmonious trine. But Uranus represents changes, disruptions, unexpected situations, and the trine to Venus in Virgo might mean that there are some changes that are going on to our health habits, our routine, our style. I definitely feel like it could be cool for some unusual and futuristic or freaky costumes. It can be really fun for socializing with Venus trine Uranus, especially those of you guys who are like going into the workplace and you hang out with your coworkers. I could see Venus in the sign of Virgo as, you know, people who are kind of getting together and having like a party or doing something after work or some kind of get together or gathering, making time for socializing in the midst of what feels like a rather busy day. Just a lot of communicating to try to feel like all the parts come together appropriately. When Venus trines Uranus, we're willing to try different things. So it can be styles, it can be patterns, it can be colors, foods, flavors, and shocks and surprises sometimes in a good way for relationships, kind of just changing things up socially a little bit. We will also see the moon coming into a sextile with the North Node and a trine with the South Node. So while the moon's in Gemini, we're busy, we're chatty, we're moving around, we're kind of getting out in the neighborhood, we're doing stuff, we're feeling a little bit more independent. And we are also actively clearing or kind of catching up somehow and rebalancing the past. So I like that aspect with the moon, although you're going to get that later in the evening. And that moon's just going to keep doing its thing. It looks like it's going to start to pick up in the evening hours with that sextile and that trine. And you're going to start to feel in the late hours of the 31st a mutable T-square that's building. So the moon's going through Gemini, squaring Neptune. So it can be some issues with vision, perception, some issues with weather. And then we're having the squares to Venus, which can also represent some challenges in terms of relating. Here's a hot tip, and this is like really at any time, but especially when the moon is in a square to Neptune and we see Venus that's kind of moving through a sign that she's not so pleased with. This is a time to be really mindful of when you're in transportation, okay? Neptune can be liquids, it can be wet weather, but it can also be people who are drinking and driving. So when the moon moves through a sign that deals with transportation, you guys want to be really careful because of reckless driving or people who are under the influence, but also weather on Halloween night, because it does look like there can be some issues. I also feel like there's definitely going to be some upset tummies or people who are possibly socializing a little bit too much and having either a sugar hangover or a literal hangover. So if you're somebody who partakes a little bit too much in the Halloween candy or in, partying on Tuesday night, Moon square Venus and Venus being in Virgo seems to indicate that there is like a change or disruption to our daily routine and our habits, that can make us not be feeling so hot, because Venus is starting to come into an opposition with Neptune. So if you're somebody who generally stays away from the drinks and the sweets and the sugars and all that stuff, and you find yourself dipping your toe in the water, just be mindful that the effects the next couple of days can kind of take some time to kind of rebalance and get back into a routine. So you'll feel that moon in Gemini, which is about movement, communication, and changes, coming into some uncomfortable squares with Neptune and Venus. So that'll be pretty much into the evening hours. All right, so this is going to take us to Wednesday, November the 1st. We wake up with the moon in Gemini, and the moon is now starting to form that square to Neptune and also Venus. So we're feeling this early in the morning. I do feel like it is possible some of us might be feeling a little drowsy under the weather. There can also be some confusion, some mixed feelings with the moon square Neptune. I do think that the positive is that, Mercury and Mars are coming into conjunction. So whatever has happened over the last 2 days, whatever you're not liking, there is this sense of being like, okay, I need to change it. I need to make a shift. I need to be listening, maybe to my intuition. Maybe I do need to be aware of this thing that's been kind of coming up, that's been bothering me, or, what my gut feelings or my hunches are telling me, or what I'm feeling that I need to kind of dig in and acknowledge. The Sun, Mercury, Mars really, it's like a dog with a bone. Like it's going to keep going after something or wanting to go after something until it has some kind of resolution. And we'll find that when these planets start opposing Uranus, there is that aha, or that moment where you're like, this is what I felt like was coming, or this is what I was looking for. So pay attention when, we have the 31st and the 1st, where the moon is kind of rubbing all these Scorpio planets the wrong way, trying to get you to kind of do some digging work to figure out what needs to be cut out or cleared. Not much else is going to be going on the 1st, other than the moon will ingress into Cancer, where it's a lot more comfortable. So we're going to see that in the early evening. Moon moves into Cancer in its home sign, immediately starts trining Saturn. So emotions stabilize. We're feeling a little bit more secure. We're a little bit more comfortable. Maybe we're staying close to home. Maybe we're reflecting on something. And Saturn's very strong because Saturn is actually getting ready to go direct. So it won't be for a couple days, but Saturn is going to stay at this 0 degrees. So I'm liking the moon trine Saturn here because it does make me feel like on the 1st we're reflecting, we're remembering. Those of you guys who like to celebrate Day of the Dead, such a cool day to have the moon in Cancer, where we're connecting to our roots, our lineage, our family, our ancestors, which is a lot what that holiday is about. And the trine to Saturn, which is the spirit world and things that are invisible, but also ancestors and elders. So the energy shifts a lot on the 1st later in the day. I feel like things stabilize a little bit. It feels a little less crazy and a little less hectic. And that's really the only other aspect we're going to see on the 1st. So the moon's going to keep moving through Cancer into the 2nd. So this will be on Thursday. And we've got a nice day on tap on Thursday. This is one of the better days. The moon's going to be then trining the sun. So to see the moon and the sun in harmony, we feel like finally things are going a little bit more smoothly. We will be experiencing some grand water trines between the moon's ingress into Cancer and all of this stuff in Scorpio and Pisces. So you're probably going to be feeling on the 2nd and the 3rd a little bit more emotional, a little bit more sensitive. There is a sense with the sun and the moon in a trine that things are just flowing better, right? We just feel like things are coming together. We're able to kind of stay on task. We're feeling like things are kind of in the flow, especially with water trines. We'll see the moon also form a sextile to Jupiter. So Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus, the moon will sextile. I think the moon sextile Jupiter is kind of feeling like, okay, we're feeling more so grounded, really focusing on reevaluating our beliefs, our resources, our values, taking stock in what we have so that way we can feel safe and secure. And we'll start to see the moon also pick up a trine to Mars, but that's going to be in the evening. But I mean, I feel like that's wonderful. I mean, the moon trine Mars, and you have both of these planets that are in their ruling signs, to me feels like a lot of emotional healing, feeling good about making shifts, letting our emotions lead the way. And, while we're in Scorpio season, because it's a water sign, whatever's coming up for us emotionally is what we need to acknowledge, so that way we can actually take the necessary active steps, Mars, to make changes, Mercury. So I would say on the 2nd, on Thursday night, be open to communicating, talking about your feelings, pay attention to your intuition, maybe move some things around, make some changes at home. Like, I think when moon trines Mars, it's like rearranging furniture or rearranging shelves or other things, and like feeling, okay, how does this flow in this space? But these trines can also bring opportunities for psychic insight, intuition, dream work. I especially think you're going to see that as the moon starts coming into a trine with Neptune going into the 3rd. All right, so overnight, something else you're going to see is we are going to have the sun come into an opposition with Jupiter. So maybe you're feeling this on the evening of the 2nd and it's going into the 3rd. Personally, I like this opposition. It feels to me like anything is possible. It feels a little bit more optimistic, a little bit more lucky. The sun represents like our ego and also like our desires and our creativity and our self-expression. And so it is having us kind of really ask ourselves, okay, what is it that we want to grow, right? You guys have seen me use the reference to Jupiter in Taurus in the garden. What do we want to grow? Where do we want to be next spring? In order to do that, Scorpio season is all about making changes, cutting things off, purging, purifying, and fertilizing, creating fertile ground, so that way our flowers can grow next year. So I look at all this Scorpio seasoning as pruning and prepping and clearing stuff out and pulling the weeds, and maybe acknowledging that some stuff has to go for us to be able to have those resources in 2024. So this is a really good day on the 2nd to get real with yourself and say, okay, where are my emotions telling me that I'm kind of needing to get out of my own way? Stay hydrated, work with water, lots of liquids, hot teas, taking baths, soaking in hot tubs, using hot saunas. These things can be really wonderful to help move through and process the emotions that are going to come up with this trine. All right, so then we're going to see the moon keep moving through Cancer. Late at night, it will pick up a square to Chiron, so there can be a sense of like becoming aware of where our emotions are telling us that there's something that we need to heal, and like wounds are coming up, so we move through it. And then the moon is going to continue to move through Cancer into the 3rd, which is Friday. And we wake up with the moon sextile Uranus, so we're adjusting to these new circumstances post-eclipse, and it's in a trine to Mercury. So I like the 2nd and the 3rd. Those are probably my favorite days of the entire week. And something else you're going to notice is that the moon will come into a square with the nodes on Friday. So for me, that's kind of like looking at things going like, okay, there are certain events taking place, certain emotions that are coming up, certain things with the home, the past, our family, that is quite literally making changes to the future, because the moon is connected to the north and the south node. These are the nodes of the moon. So emotions, emotional reactions, home and family play a huge role in shifts that are going on with our destiny. Sometimes when the moon squares the nodes, things happen that we don't see coming. Thankfully, I think with the sextile to Uranus, we can handle it. And the trines to Mercury and Mars, communication allows us to be more vulnerable and open up, so we can actually move out of old patterns that are inhibiting us from being able to be North Node in Aries, brave, bold, courageous, independent. All right, so we might feel like we're at a turning point maybe between where we're at with ourselves and where we're at with others, South Node in Libra. But really, Scorpio season in general, but especially this season, the name of the game is change. As long as we're willing to change things, as long as we're willing to be willing to like let go of old patterns or maybe like stubbornness, we'll be able to adapt a little bit better. So then we start seeing the moon come into a trine with Neptune, and that's going to be happening in the afternoon. Feeling kind of dreamy, tapped in, intuitive, more so aware, picking up on things that might be subconscious or intuitive. And the moon's still in a trine to Mercury. So this is a really great divination day. This is a great day for maybe, doing some tarot cards or working with some meditation, doing some dream interpretation, something more kind of spiritual, because I feel like we're going to get guidance. So definitely consider doing that on Friday. And we're going to start to see Venus come into an opposition with Neptune. Now, this is really important because Venus rules the South Node. And Venus represents harmony, relationships, love, resources, especially, in the sign of Virgo, it can represent health, career health. It can represent physical health patterns, pets, the industry of health as well. So doctors, nurses. And Venus will oppose Neptune. So this is the day that you guys want to be mindful, okay? Kind of complex. Like Venus has been in a trine to Uranus, so we've been making changes. It has also been in conjunct or quincunx the North Node, so we've been having to kind of clean something up or work through some relationship issues. Maybe it's to friends, maybe it's to family, maybe it's the relationship to ourselves. This is one of the last two aspects that Venus is going to make before she changes signs. When she's in opposition to Neptune, Neptune represents like putting something on a pedestal or something that goes missing or something that vanishes. This is a day that you guys want to be really careful with matters of love and money. This is not the day to be wiring funds to somebody that you don't know. This is not the day to be doing major purchases or transactions. This is also a day where we might find ourselves going, why didn't that person call me back? Why did they ghost me? What went wrong? What did I do? And I think it's about the actions that we're taking in love and also in health. So Venus is at a 25. It represents action. And Neptune can also be things that are hidden, secretive, subconscious, behind the scenes, private. And Venus is the dispositor for Jupiter and Uranus. So for me, in my notes, I put, where's the love? Where's the love? Where's the response? But I think some people are going to be going, where's the money? Where did the money go? Especially because you're going to see Mercury make an opposition to Uranus. So there might be some data drops, some breaches, themes revolving around passwords, access, privacy. Be very, very careful because this is going to be a major theme pretty much all month long, but especially the first week of November. So as much as I hate to say it, yeah, relationships can be a little disappointing with this aspect. This is a time where we can be, hopelessly and gloriously blind to what the reality is when it comes to a relationship. Some of you guys are really going to have to take off those rose-colored glasses because if you're seeing what you want to see, you may not know what color the red flags are. They may look like green flags to you. I don't know. Then we're going to have... we're going to have that opposition, and then you'll start to feel Venus is trine to Pluto, and that's where something is going to change and transform. This is also about like where power is assisting and kind of stepping in. So, part of Venus being connected to Taurus and the opposition to Neptune is we're going to hear more about those who need medical care, those who need treatment, those who need rehab, those who need housing, those who, need support of some kind. And so perhaps this gives an opportunity for some people to tap into resources, to receive help and support. So much about Venus in Virgo is about giving to those in need and assisting those in need and not overlooking, something and going like, okay, they'll be fine. No, donate, give time, give assistance when you can. But Venus is about to go into another sign. So she's going to be a little bit happier. Relationships are going to get a little bit easier with this as well. All right, so the last aspect that we're going to see is the moon will oppose Pluto. So that gets a little tense. It's later in the evening on the 3rd. We're feeling challenged by this because not only has the moon been in a square to the nodes, but now it's going to pick up an opposition to Pluto. So this is, it's a little wide, but this is a grand cardinal cross. So if you're somebody who's the late degrees of the cardinal signs, you're really going to feel this at the end of the evening on the 3rd. So this is Friday night. All right, so then the moon will shift into Leo very early on Saturday the 4th, okay? And Saturn is direct, by the way. So the events taking place the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, because Saturn is stationing and getting ready to go direct, we're going to be feeling the effects of Saturn. And when outer planets especially are getting ready to station and go direct, likely there's something going on revolving around that planet. So Saturn represents boundaries, limitations, leadership, government, top-down structures, people who are going to be giving us some sort of direction. And it's interesting to see like Venus opposed Neptune in the same sign as Saturn, and also, seeing Saturn go direct. I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about the roles and the involvement of leaders and Neptunian things, drugs, pharmaceuticals, prisons, private places, immigration. I also think this is going to be a lot about things revolving around like drugs and mental health, Pisces related topics. I'm going to talk about this in my Mercury retrograde video, but something that's really popped up for me over the last week is I've been hearing a lot about the movement that's been going on in Canada. Not a Canadian, but hearing about the MAID program and the program that's basically been set up for those who are terminally ill or those who are experiencing, I guess I should say hopelessness or illness, medically assisted suicide. Obviously sensitive topic, trigger warning, but I don't even know if I want to get into this yet. I will talk about this in my video, but I will say this. The long and short of it is, apparently Canada has been creating spaces in major cities where people can utilize narcotics, and they're calling it like safe zones where they can use it. Apparently there's also places where they are supporting making it possible for them not to only use it, but to have access to products and paraphernalia relating to narcotics. And so now there's movement to, make it more so possible or more readily available for other groups to have access to assisted suicide. So now they're opening it up to people who are addicts, drug addicts, as well as people who have mental health disorders. Obviously, I'm not one to judge, but it seems a little bit bizarre to me that you would almost fuel or make it possible for people to participate in drugs, and also make it very challenging for people to get the care that they need. Talking to people about, mental health and stress revolving around finances, and then letting them know that there's a way out through an assisted program, which the Canadian, taxpayers are helping pay for. So creating a dynamic where people don't have the necessary care and then offering them a way out. This is Saturn going direct. This is the awareness of the fact that that is very much involved in the government. This is also Saturn, this is Neptune retrograde, where, people aren't really hearing about this. I was hearing the numbers just since 2020 or 2021, just progressively getting more and more. Really sad, disheartening. I can't imagine being in that situation, but it reminds me a lot of the Venus in opposition to Neptune, where are people getting the care that they need? Is that as helpful as maybe what they're making it be seen to be? I mean, they're creating like commercials and things for it, which is like so disheartening, because you gotta think about people being in a situation where they're dealing with addiction and they need care, right? They don't necessarily need a way out. They need care, they need treatment, they need counseling. Same thing with people who are facing homelessness or housing crisis, or people who are having mental health disorders. It's bizarre to me that there are so many limitations to things that people who are experiencing mental health disorders have. They can't purchase certain things, they can't participate in certain jobs or do certain things out in society, but they can be offered an option for assisted suicide. It literally breaks my heart. So I think about this opposition and maybe not getting the love that we need, not getting the support that we need. And then the trine to Pluto could be, well, this is here's the way out. This is our help. This is how we are supporting you through Plutonian measures. Anyway, more on that. I'll talk about that with the Mercury-Neptune squares later this month. So Saturn goes direct, 0 degrees, super karmic point. 0 degrees of any sign is the purest form of a sign. So this is really talking about the fact that we're all about to have some kind of kind of test that's going to come up with wherever Saturn is in our chart. Look at where Pisces is, and something is waking up, and we're going to be aware or become aware of the effects of the work that we've been doing while Saturn has been retrograde. All right, so then we're going to see the moon enters Leo really early in the morning. We are going to see the moon continue to move through Leo, and early in the morning, Mercury makes an opposition to Uranus. So this will be the first planet to make an opposition to Uranus. Mercury is the mind, communication, data, information. Uranus is sudden shocks and surprises, things that are electrical or out of the blue. So as Mercury opposes Uranus, there is going to be some shocking information. It's hard to maybe obtain or understand what's going on. Eventually, Mars as well as the Sun will also oppose Uranus, which is going to bring more kind of shocks and surprises. My advice is pay attention to what comes up on the 4th, because what information is getting ready to happen, the Sun Mars is going to come through and it's going to push that change, or there's going to be a challenge or a conflict or kind of cutting or severing something. Well, what is Uranus and Taurus? It's the banks, it's the resources, it's electricity, it's technology. So I think a lot of people are going to be in for some shocks and surprises, just quite literally in regards to the impact of this ever-growing debt that we are accumulating. And I think a lot of people are going to be really surprised when they start to realize interest rates aren't coming down. It is going to be more challenging for loans. And just quite frankly, the effects that we're going to be seeing economically, which I do think are going to be really surprising for a lot of people in this next month. All right, so also on the 4th, we are going to see the moon keep moving. It'll pick up a square midday to, let's see, actually I take that back, in the evening to Jupiter. Okay, so we've got moon in Leo, square Jupiter. And when the moon's in Leo, we're paying attention to the sun. And the sun is still in Scorpio. It's in conjunction to Mars still. So we're still focusing on passion, changes, transformation, making moves emotionally. And overnight on the 4th, we will start to see into the 5th, which will be Sunday, the moon is coming into a square with Uranus. So now you're waking up Sunday the 5th, this will be next week, to a T-square. I mean, I'm going to be honest, it's a T-square within about 5 degrees. So we've got moon square Uranus, so we're emotionally reacting to things, sudden shocks and surprises. Sun and Mars in a square with the moon. So this is going to make the moon in Leo a focal point of what is a T-square in the fixed signs. And it's around the mid degrees, okay? Anywhere around 14, 15 degrees of the fixed signs is pretty significant. So as you're waking up in the morning, there's like a little bit of like a blockage that's kind of coming up, or some drama, or some situation involving lovers, children, creativity, the stock market. These are all Leo things. So we'll be experiencing that fixed T-square. And when we have the moon in Leo, we are creative and bold and daring, and we want to have fun and we want to have playtime. But being that it's going to hit Uranus and also the Sun and Mars, it makes me feel like it is setting up for some big financial rumbles. So I would imagine events taking place around Sunday of next week is going to have quite the impact on the markets going into the next day, Monday the 6th. This is also part of Mercury opposed Uranus. So I think about like markets that are overseas. I'm in the United States, but I think about what's going on with like, the over the weekend discussions, what, surprising news is coming out from the future because Mercury is pulled ahead of the sun, and what patterns and stuff are we seeing in other places that might have an effect on all of us here collectively, but especially I keep thinking about that eclipse that we just had yesterday in Taurus, smack dab in conjunction to the Venus of the New York Stock Exchange. So for the next couple of weeks, we're going to see Jupiter in conjunction to that. So whatever is happening with the stock market, it's big, whether it's, positive swings upwards or bigger swings down. And even if things rally a little bit, you know, I genuinely feel like we're going to get to the new year and people are going to be really surprised in 2024 some of the changes that are going to be happening with the market. So we'll see. Not a financial advisor, just an astrologer. But have found that when the moon goes through Leo, because it deals with the stock market, it makes these squares. There are events where people are making moves, and the sun is the dispositor of the moon, and you've got the sun and Mars moving through a sign that deals with like death and war and destruction, and it's all opposing Jupiter. So there's no surprise that we're going to see a total run on some of these like military stocks, but I also think we're going to be hearing more with some of the trines to Saturn and Neptune about gas and oil and other, you know, natural resources as we start to see oppositions to Uranus, right? All right, so that's the week ahead for you guys. Just November at a glance, you know, we are going to see, like I said, Saturn go direct, and that'll be on the 4th. So if you have any personal planets around 0 to like, let's say 2 degrees of Pisces, sun, moon, rising, or personal planet, you're going to feel that direct pretty significantly, as well as if you are a Capricorn or an Aquarius rising, because you're ruled by Saturn. Now, ingresses this month, we're going to see on the 8th, Venus enters Libra. Finally, we see Venus move into a sign where she is more comfortable. The good news is that in theory, relationships should get a whole lot easier. We should find that it's easier to be diplomatic. Relations might improve. Better for those of you guys who are looking to kind of meet people and mingle. Venus moving through Libra is really great for relationships. It won't be until the tail end of this transit that we see some conjunctions to the South Node and squares to Pluto. But I'm loving Venus moving into Libra. I'm looking forward to it. On November 10th, Mercury enters Sagittarius. So we're going to see that shift, very significant for those of you guys, obviously, who are ruled by Mercury. So my Gemini and my Virgo risings, as well as Sagittarius's. Then on the 22nd of the month, the sun enters Sagittarius. We will start Sag season. And 2 days later, on the 24th, we will see Mars enter Sagittarius as well. Now, keep in mind, as planets move into the mutable signs, they're all going to get checked by Saturn. So there will be squares to Saturn in Pisces. However, Sagittarius is in a superior position to Pisces. And I have thought that this will be a Sagittarius season for the books as Mercury, the Sun, as well as Mars move to square Saturn. And finally, I think we're going to start to see some checks and balances in the legal system, but also a global move to challenge authority and question who's really running things. Now, we'll have 2 lunations this month, a November 13th, new moon in Scorpio. Holy smokes. This is like do or die. It's going to be conjunct Mars and in opposition to Uranus. Make a note of November 13th. That's when you want to get your shit together. That's going to be a new moon where you're going to be like, we're not just talking about it, we're doing it. It's go time. That is very similar in a way to the energy that we just had with this eclipse in Taurus, which featured an opposition to Mercury and Mars. So likely there's some challenges that's coming up around this eclipse. And then the new moon comes in and you're like, that's it. I'm cutting this thing out. I'm doing this now. Here we go. So get with the flow of maybe flushing stuff out for the next 2 weeks, and whatever situation that has definitely grown to become a bigger challenge or a bigger goal, set your sights for really putting things in motion mid-month. We will also have a full moon in Gemini. That'll be on November 27th. And I love that full moon in Gemini is always around Thanksgiving. You always have like the craziest conversations around the Thanksgiving table. Lots about politics and cultural things. And, you know, it's so appropriate this year because we're going to see Mercury in a square to Neptune. So that's going to be a little challenging. That's also going to be the beginning process of starting to see Mercury move into shadow. So just be mindful of that. All right, so if we keep moving on through the month, now we're going to go to November the 6th. And on the 6th, we're going to see Venus trine Pluto in Capricorn. This is powerful moves for love and money. For me, this is a lot of like also feeling in control because Venus is moving through an earth sign that's associated with career and themes revolving around, being of service, helping, being productive. And Venus is in a trine to Pluto. So on one hand, out in the world, and I'm hearing this from so many clients and so many people are like, what's going on with these layoffs? Why are there so many layoffs? Because Pluto is now awake in Capricorn. So the trines to Venus is like, okay, in order to keep the ship afloat, we have to kind of trim the fat, or we have to let some things go. So Venus-Pluto trines can be about empowerment, but it can also be about powerful shifts to preserve what it is that we need in order to be healthy, and the relationships that we maintain, or in this case, the jobs that we maintain in order to stay afloat, Pluto in Capricorn. But still powerful for love and money. I like to see that trine. Not wild about it coming after the opposition to Neptune, because I feel like it's setting Pluto up to say like, okay, you didn't get what you need in this aspect, but will you take the golden apple? Watch out. Same day, we're going to see Mercury in Scorpio form a trine to Neptune. And for me, this is about leaning into the feelings, leaning into the intuition, letting our gut be our guide. I like that there is this wonderful little sextile going on between Mercury and Venus, and Mercury and Pluto in Neptune. All roads lead to earth and water working together, letting intuition be the guide for what we get done. My advice is be vulnerable on this day, communicate, speak from the heart, and learn how to listen to your emotions, because they're trying to talk to you about how to get a problem solved or how to be more so productive. Then we're going to get to the 8th, and Venus moves into Libra. So for my Taurus and my Libra risings, how are you feeling? I'm Libra rising. I've been like telling myself since like July, I'm like, you just have to get to November. It's going to get better. So Venus now moves into Libra. So for my Libra sun, moon, and risings, the goddess is blessing you, spending some time with your sign. You have to listen to your horoscopes for November, but I do touch on this transit, and I will do a video on this in this next week. Basically, love and relationships and harmony, love and relationships, diplomacy, and harmony all become more so possible as Venus moves into her home sign, the planet Venus in the sign of relationships. So I do think that this is going to be such a nice reprieve after the rather intense Venus retrograde this summer, the squares to Uranus, a challenging move through Virgo. Here, those of you guys who have been going through breakups, separations, or healing may be more so open and ready for partnership of any kind. But Libra can be your therapist, it can be your astrologer, it can be your marketplace, your business partners. So people will start showing up that can kind of help build in the direction that we need to be going. Then on the same day, we're also going to see Mercury in Scorpio start sextiling Pluto. So I'm calling this tapping in. Feeling our way into something, being able to maybe problem solve and perceive challenges before they arrive. So when Mercury is in Scorpio, we're looking at Pluto, we're looking at Mars. There's a lot of harmony here where I feel like it really pays to be kind of looking ahead and trying to figure out what we're building, what we're working towards. Whenever we have a real strong Scorpio or Capricorn vibe, there's this sense of like wanting to feel in control. So look at Scorpio in your chart. There's some action going on there that's funneling positive energy into Capricorn, where the actions you're taking in Scorpio is helping you feel like you're taking some kind of control or working through power-related issues in the Capricorn area. But this to me feels very, very tapped in. Then we're going to have on the 10th, Mercury enters Sagittarius, okay? So Mercury is going to be moving, obviously, into its fall. So it's moving into a sign that is opposite of Gemini, and it is a Jupiterian sign. So this could be tall tales or optimism. Definitely Mercury moving into Sagittarius is about foreign languages, travel, philosophy, the silver lining, being a little bit more optimistic about what is possible. So generally, this is a transit that can be a little bit more a little bit more positive, at least for communications and travel. However, Mercury is immediately going to be met with a square to Saturn. So there can be some reality checks, some harsh reality checks pertaining to what's really going on out in the world. I do feel like, with all these planets moving into Sagittarius, they're in a superior position. So they're kind of raining down on Saturn. I think the Mercury-Saturn square is essentially challenging the status quo. Does life have to be doom and gloom? Do we have to constantly be waiting for the other shoe to drop? Who's telling us that the world is a scary, limited place? And Sagittarius is all about law, right? Freedom, travel, philosophy. So it's picking up on the energies of Jupiter. So it's interesting to watch all these planets quincunx Jupiter and square Saturn. And I believe there's going to be a global initiative to discuss more about the life that we want to build, how sweet things can be, and what could be possible, even when things are looking a little grim. Not the best for communication, not the best for signing contracts, and definitely a little challenging for travel on November the 10th. Now we move to November 11th, 11/11. We've got Mars in Scorpio, okay? And the Sun-Mars conjunction is building. So you're seeing them get closer and closer. They will fuse around the time of the new moon. But we are going to see Mars oppose Uranus. Mars rules the North Node. This is all about action, drive, desire, and courage. Moving through Scorpio, so it's 8 signs away, which is about intensity, change, transformation, sexuality, taboo subjects, and it's going to oppose Uranus at 21. Oh boy. So this is a day where anything that is fast, sharp, explosive, anything like that, you want to watch for. This is definitely what I would consider a boiling point. This is where there can be people who just snap. There can be sudden snap decisions. And we may feel like we have to break free from someone or something. Now, just being someone, I have my natal Mars in Scorpio. I've had the Uranus in opposition transit. Not fun, but definitely, I think back a couple of years ago when it happened, it literally brought up so much frustration for me that it showed me where that frustration was like, this is not working. You have to change. And it is relational because it's an opposition. Not a day to go toe-to-toe with somebody, to get into a conflict, a fight, because somebody will square up. This is also as we're coming into a new moon, so this will be technically a dark moon, and the moon will be square Pluto, so holy smokes. This is like, some very unexpected conflict will most likely arise right around this time. Just take a step back, breathe, focus more on what you can change, and recognize that so much about these planets that move through Scorpio are about where crisis is showing us we need to act, we need to make changes, we need to do it now. And a lot of this is like self-preservation, 8th house to Aries. When I create this video for you guys this next week, I've already decided I'm going to call it do or die, because it's going to be like, it's very Pluto energy, transmute or die. We must make a change. And we're not going to wait around. It's going to be something that we're going to initiate right around this opposition going into the new moon, and it'll be all the way until the new year. So those of you guys who want to kind of get with the program with some of your New Year's resolutions, I actually recommend starting it on the new moon in Scorpio. Don't bother trying to do that stuff when Mercury squares Neptune in December and January. So for me, it's like if you want to do it before the new year, do it with the new moon or wait till next spring. All right, so this is boiling points. So then we have on the 13th, we're going to have a new moon in Scorpio. What is the exact degree here? Let's see. There we go. So it's going to be a new moon in Scorpio, and this will be at 20 degrees on November 13th. So if it's your birthday, give or take a day around that time, you have a new moon on your birthday, so that's really significant. Well, when the sun and moon come together, it's a fresh start. And this is a new moon that's ruled by Mars, and Mars is right in front of the sun. So something to take into consideration is heat, passion, agitation, physical activity, releasing of energy. That is the key. And it's coming right after we had that opposition to Uranus. So likely something happened that kind of, really pushed you into being like, okay, we need to avert crisis, or we need to kind of make this shift. We need to cut something off. Mars can be like that machete that's like cutting through all of the stuff that you haven't been wanting to let go of. So I like this new moon for banishing, releasing, you know, like clearing, you know, return to sender, undoing, like all that stuff. Anything you want to shake free of. Fire and water is definitely the key for this new moon in Scorpio. For me, my notes literally say intense AF. So I think that says it all. But I think that really the other side of this is not just the new moon, it's the oppositions to Uranus, and it's about expecting the unexpected. I feel like this is setting the stage in so many ways for the super conjunction of Uranus and Jupiter in spring of 2024. You guys know, if you've seen my videos, I talk about stuff months in advance, and some of you guys are like, why do you do that? Well, because it pays to be prepared. But also, there is some synchronicity with the universe. Sometimes we'll see in eclipses or aspects that certain degrees keep getting re-triggered, right? Have you guys noticed that? So this new moon is at 20 degrees and change. It's almost 21 degrees in opposition to Uranus. Scorpio is sudden change, death, transformation, crisis. So we are all collectively during a new moon feeling this. At the time, it opposes Uranus at 21. Well, around April 20th, 2024, we're going to have Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction. Here's my prediction. A lot of people are going to be seeing chaos, crisis, things breaking down, things that are falling apart, frustration, agitation. We're going to see money that's going to be suddenly going in and out of banks, on and off of exchanges. People are going to be really focusing on what they need, or maybe Scorpio can be losses, what they're losing, or what they're letting go of. Scorpio is also debt, okay? So my advice is for those of you guys with this new moon, to the best of your abilities, the focus really should be between now and the spring, paying debt down, not putting stuff on the credit card, not having excess expenses. Scorpio is about strategy. It's about planning. It's also about averting crisis. So because Mars rules the North Node, it's like, what action are you taking, or where are you letting your intuition be your guide, or where are you kind of setting some cash aside, or where are you learning more about self-defense, or where are you going to be investing your resources so you're better prepared for the rumbles that are coming next year. And it's exactly within less than a degree in opposition to the conjunction. If you play your cards right, and if you come up with a strategy plan right now with this new moon where you're paying stuff off and you're saving things and getting stocked and being prepared, or coming up with a strategy plan for investments, you will be better. You'll be better prepared next year, and you'll be able to take an advantage of the opportunity that's coming when I think things potentially break down. Anyway, you'll come back to this video in 6 months and I'll say I told you so, but this is where we really want to get with the action plan. All right, so now we're going to go to the 15th, and on the 15th we have Mercury in Sag, sextile Venus in Libra. I like this. This is well received considering all the other intense energies. When Mercury and Venus are in a sextile, we can speak more sweetly. I think this is also about focusing on the silver linings. You know, where Mercury is saying, you know, anything is possible in Sagittarius, and Venus is in Libra, where we are daydreaming and thinking about the future and more optimistic about what the future holds. We are able to start to actively plan that with other people, and maybe we're getting advice and feedback from other people. Teachers, mentors kind of come through Sagittarius that can give us some good advice, especially when it comes to relationships at large, right, with the world, because Sagittarius is a global sign. So look for those silver linings on the 15th and those positive conversations and insights. On the 17th is when we are going to see, let's see, I feel like the Sun-Mars conjunction, where is it? No, it hasn't happened yet. I take that back. So on the 17th, Mars in Scorpio will trine Neptune in Pisces. Okay. I like the 16th, 17th, maybe even the 18th. I think there's going to be a lot of active dreaming, lucid dreams. I think we're going to be trying to find ways to connect passion, desire, manifestations, intention into rituals and routines. Once again, hot water, you know, maybe writing on our intentions, burning it, writing our intentions, putting it in bowls of water. You know, Neptune can be about setting intentions and dissolving that stuff. This is also like flushes, cleansing, flushing things out. Like, I am waiting for this transit because I know with the trines to Neptune and the sextiles to Pluto, this is the best time to do detoxes and purges. This is the best time also to really get super focused with goals and knowing that we're going to have just the right amount of earth and water to make magic happen. So I'm going to be using like the 13th through the 17th to set all of my intentions personally. And I'm really liking the fact that the sun is now pulling, you know, into conjunction with Mars, and we're about to see Mars die and be reborn in the heart of the sun. So there's something new that's being seeded there as well. We'll also see the same day the sun come into a trine with Neptune. So different flavor with the sun and Mars, which is kind of like passionate and intense, penetrating in Scorpio, but the trine to Neptune is piercing the veil, right? Being able to see beyond, becoming acutely aware of why there is so much push, why there's so much intensity, why there is so much agitation, anger. I mean, it's in the skies, guys. It's going to be in the skies all month long. But the trines to Neptune is trying to transmute it. It's trying to release it. It's trying to recognize where it's going from. For me, it's about forgiveness. It's about healing. It's about letting go. It's about trying to understand why everybody is behaving this way, and that it's just almost being like it almost feels like the pot is being stirred. And if we tap into the higher octaves of Neptune, it's a similar energy as Venus sometimes, right? Some people consider Neptune to be the higher octave of Venus, that it can be about unconditional healing and releasing and letting go. So there's going to have to be a lot of having to take a step back, taking a breath, and just being like, bless your heart, biting your tongue, right? And not going, you know, 0 to nasty real quick, because we can with some of these conjunctions between the sun and Mars. So watch for like a really psychic tapped in day. Try to find ways to flex your third eye so that way you're not getting agitated. And then it's the 18th that we're going to see this conjunction. So we are going to see Mars and the sun come into conjunction at 25 degrees of Scorpio. Okay. Look at this, the sextile to the moon and Pluto. So the moon comes into conjunction with Pluto, activates that sun in Scorpio. Sun comes into conjunction with Mars, activates that. I mean, it's just like, what? Like, what is going on here? And it's still trining Neptune. You know, this is in an Aries degree, so it's going to be something that's going to happen on an individual level. When Sun conjuncts Mars, it is possible that something is being seeded that is about new desires, intentions, you know, emerging, changing, and transforming. When we see these conjunctions, weeks later, something emerges, right? I think back to like, you know, fall of 2019, we saw Sun-Mars conjunction in Virgo. 6 months later, we had the pandemic while we were in Pisces season. So if you guys follow my drift here, I'm not saying it's the same thing, but we're going to have Sun-Mars conjunction in Scorpio, okay? And Mars is associated with the North Node in Aries. So some crisis, some war, some action, some dramatic shift or change with resources, with debt, is going to create a bigger situation in spring of 2024. Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, right, in April. But also when we start seeing planets roll through Taurus, we're going to see like Venus hit 29 degrees of Jupiter in Taurus. We're going to see the sun come into conjunction. So April, May of next year, like if there is another war, there is going to be a lot of people who are going to make a lot of money. I guess I'll just say that. If there is some kind of significant, you know, situation going on with gas or oil, we are going to see some really inflated prices next year. And I think that this is going to be through Sun-Mars related things. Leaders taking some kind of bold action and suddenly moving on something, and the financial implications, the global implications, the market effects that we're going to have next year. I, for one, think that, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm like, it's an election year. You know, here in the United States, 2024, in the fall, we're going to have an election. And I wonder if the market, and I've thought this since Uranus has been in Taurus, is being manipulated, especially if you guys think back to 2021, 2020. As Saturn and Uranus were squaring, we were seeing that Uranus wanted to break free. So Uranus in Taurus wants some kind of change or transformation to financial systems. It may mean that we need new ways of being able to transact. We need more freedom when it comes to transactions as well. I think so much of this whole talk of decentralization came from Uranus and Taurus. It's been limited because Saturn has been there. We've been waiting for, you know, old politicians to catch up. We've been waiting for the bankers to kind of finally get with the program. And I think now we're really going to start to see, in light of the old system failing, right, the potential and opportunity for new markets and new ways of trading to emerge next year. So those of you guys who see the valleys that will be taking place over the next couple of months may potentially catch it in an opportunity to invest in some of these things or in markets that could be ridiculously valuable next year. But obviously you gotta know what you're investing in. For me, I'm thinking like, you know, Taurus is connected to land, physical land that could be used for agriculture. It could be natural gases. It could be physical resources and things that are mined, right? Taurus, although Capricorn is mining, but we're going to see some trines basically. So that kind of stuff is what comes to mind for me. But I do have my eye on the Bitcoin chart. I do have my eye on cryptocurrency. I think when enough people start to realize that this is a potentially an emperor has no clothes situation where the banks really don't have as much money as what we think they do, or they may not have it in physical form, people might start scrambling and realizing that there needs to be alternative ways of being able to transact and do business, for what it's worth. Anyways, 6 months after this, just for shits and giggles, let's see, this is November 17th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Does this mean something's going to happen exactly on the day? No. But wouldn't you believe this is right when the Sun and Jupiter will conjunct? And here's Venus, and here's Uranus, and here's Mars coming into conjunction with the North Node. So what does that mean? Well, likely there is a war, or there is some kind of need for defense, or there is some kind of need for military mobility. And best believe all of those defense contracting companies and everything is in cahoots with the government. They're going to make a fuckload of money. So with that being said, this is also physical resources. This is food. This is emergency supplies. This might be natural resources. Like in my mind, I'm thinking like metals, medications, so there aren't shortages, but hopefully there aren't with Saturn and Neptune coming into conjunction. Seeds, right? I think heirloom seeds are going to be very valuable, and things that could be traded easily in the off chance there was some like really weird series of events. But you know, the people who are going to do the best, I think, are going to be farmers who might decide that they're not going to play ball with some of the things that are coming up in the world, or people who are dealing with cattle or meat. There's definitely going to be a push and an incentive to move towards things that are going to be unusual or different or futuristic. So you have your choice. Are you going to go in the direction of eating the bugs and eating the lab-grown meat and deciding that you're going to, you know, potentially say, okay, I will do the CBDCs? Or are you going to say, no, I'm going to the farmer's market. I'm not buying stuff on a credit card. I'm focusing on being more conservative with what I do with my resources. I'm voting with my dollar. And not putting yourself in a position where you're going to be kind of pushed into a direction where you're accepting help from a system that you may not potentially want to be in. And you guys can go back and watch the videos. I put a video out every year at the beginning of the year, and I tell you guys some of the themes that are coming, and sure enough, they have definitely happened over the last 6 months. All right, so that's the 17th. Watch for that thing being seated. This is another day that I want to say, watch for what you're setting up. The sextiles to the moon and Pluto, I think, aren't all that bad. And the trines to Neptune are about being able to envision what it is that you're hoping to create. You might have to sit and manifest it, draw it out, think about it. What's that Sabian symbol? It'll be 26 Scorpio. There's a lot of Scorpio symbols this month, guys. Hope you don't mind. Just food for thought. We always round up, but as soon as I open this, Scorpio 25 is an X-ray. It's an investigation. The accent is on seeing through things. Hard to pull the wool over people's eyes today. Your greatest advantage lies in checking things out. Okay, so that's not the Sabian symbol, but it's where my eyes went. So let's read the real symbol here. Scorpio 26, Indians making camp. The theme is resourcefulness. The symbol speaks to self-establishment and a man's skill in finding or obtaining everything needed to function completely wherever he finds himself. The image of Indians making camp is a symbol of adaptability, resourcefulness, and being able to make do with whatever is immediately at hand. On a practical level, this can indicate a fresh start in a new place. The suggestion here is that an individual is where he is in life as a result of his choices or what he has accepted and rejected in the past. Self-fulfillment here becomes a matter of discovering why you're good at what you're doing. At its highest, it represents versatility, innovation, pioneering, and adventure. Watch for avoidance of struggle and blind acceptance to whatever happens is destined or fated. The accent is on setting things up and getting started, activities focused on preparation and making sure you have what you need. Greatest advantage lies in being practical. Choose useful over the aesthetic or pretty. Guard against spending too much time getting ready. There is no time left to enjoy what you're preparing for. Try making everything perfect. Usually is a exercise in futility. Be willing to make do with what you have. Stepping stones are settlement, establishment, new foundation, organization, community, resourcefulness, improvising. Crazy how accurate that can be. I didn't even read that Sabian degree. I'm going to tell you how I'm doing some of this stuff. I have Sun Mars in Scorpio. For me, it's been learning about self-defense, exercising some of my constitutional rights in that sense. And I think that that's important for everybody to at least be aware of, whether that's martial arts or learning how to, defend yourself, as much as I hate to say that, in any way, shape, or form, legally, physically, financially. These are things that I would be thinking about. I also think the Sun-Mars conjunction for me has been about preservation, what I can save, taking stock in what I have. I've been learning about fermenting food. I've been learning about sourdough starters. I've been learning about canning foods. I've been learning about, just preserving things in general. Lots about like tonics and lots of learning about natural remedies and things that I can brew, especially with that Sun Mars. It can be things that can be focusing on being able to purge and purify, or to clean up, or remove things. So for me, it's been a lot about detoxifying and anti-aging, anti-cancer related things, natural antibiotics and things that I can take. And I feel like those of you guys who are paying attention to some of the events that are going on in the world around mid-November will be better prepared next year. So I'm not going to tell you what to do. I know everybody's all in different kind of, places in that financially, but also in a sense of just timing and awareness. But I would really recommend paying attention to the events this month, because it's going to help you be better stocked and prepared when we get to next year. Remember that the North Node is ruled by Mars. And so when this conjunction happens in Scorpio, it is going to be in conjunct the North Node. So in a way, we could see this as almost like a secret attack, or a secret severing or cutting off of something that we need for survival. You guys get what I'm saying? So I think it, as much as I hate to say it, I think it has to do with like weapons, that and personal access to weapons and self-defense. And when the moon comes into conjunction with Pluto, kind of, peeping that 25 of Scorpio, I wonder if there's going to be some stuff that's proposed in mid-November that's going to be, certain like government related things that are saying, well, this is for the best for you. We're doing this to protect you. I would be very weary of that talk that's going to be coming up around mid-month. I don't know. We're still a ways out. We'll see. All right. So then we're going to see on the 20th. Okay. So the Sun-Mars conjunction will happen on the 17th, it looks like. And it's going to keep going into the 18th. And then we'll start to see the Sun sextile Pluto. And on the 20th, that Sun sextile Pluto is exact with Mars. And for me, the Sun sextile Pluto, I feel like that's about powerful transformations. It might still be feeding off of whatever was going on with the inconjunct. But a sextile is harmonious. So Mars sextile Pluto, opportunities for powerful changes and transformations. Sun sextile Pluto, same thing, especially when it comes to our goals. And this is like the last positive aspects that we're going to see between the Sun and Mars before we start seeing conjunctions to Pluto. So this represents something that's winding down or that's changing in some way. And then on the 21st, we will see Mars come into that sextile with Pluto. So remember, 29 degrees of Capricorn, the Sabian symbol. I've read that for you guys like a million times. That's about like the meetings that are being held behind closed doors, people sitting down and talking about relationships and agreements behind closed doors. So I do feel like this might represent, those who are in power and authority, Pluto and Capricorn, having conversations and planning something about things behind closed doors relating to the North Node, how to handle individuals, things revolving around war. I do think that we will hear more talks potentially, and I know a bunch of like Gen Zers are like hands up in the air over the talks of a potential draft, but I don't think that that's something that's too far off from a potential, especially looking at the eclipses next year. But I also wonder, like, more on the Congress matter, who's investing in what stocks are people investing in, what are they getting word about. I will continue to be watching some of those accounts that I know follow a lot of the congressmen and women and senators to see where their money is going, because the Sun Mars is all about exposure. And the oppositions to Uranus is about quite literally what some of these organizations and groups are doing, where they're maneuvering and kind of putting their resources. Recently, I've heard, especially I've been interested listening to presidential candidate, Vivek Ramaswamy. He was proposing all this stuff, basically being like, I'd come in and I'd want to set up a 10-year agreement where, people could not go directly from serving on Congress and then moving into positions where, they're working for lobbyists or working for like military firms, and wanting to get money out of politics and like talking a lot about, basically requiring that some of these individuals who are serving the United States, the people, that they would have to turn their investments over to like a blind trust rather than being aware of the things that are going on out in the world and making investments off of that. It sounds crazy, right? But I do think that there's going to be more talk about just how bang on some of these people who are, high ranking in the political field just seem to kind of keep picking the best stocks or making the moves before some of these major financial swings happen. So I'm anticipating we're going to hear more about that this month as well. Then we get to the 23rd, and we're going to see the Sun in Sagittarius square Saturn. I'm calling this the checkpoint. Thankfully, it's going to happen while we have Moon trine the Sun, so that's helpful. But we are going to be experiencing Sun square Saturn, so that's a day where we may feel like there's a speed bump, there's a delay, there's a challenge. It's happening in mutable signs, so it's about changes in regards to shifts, changes of plans and where we thought things were going to go one way and it goes another. Like I said, the Sagittarius season is just throwing down the hammer on Saturn. So there's definitely going to be lots of talk revolving around what's going on globally with censorship, control, limitation, who's kind of pulling the strings behind the curtains, right? Saturn in Pisces. And where we're starting to hear more talks and discussion about the legal implications of some of this like globalist movement and dissolving of boundaries, barriers, borders, in way, kind of also watering down culture and religion. Huge topics with Sagittarius and Pisces. We talk a lot about cultural belief systems and religious belief systems, and where there can be some friction between the two. I've got a really great video that I'm putting together for you guys on some of this stuff. And there are some really hot button topics that are going to be coming up. Not hearing a lot about some of this stuff in the mainstream media, and I know a lot of this stuff is sensitive, and so I try to relay it as honestly as I can. But I think a lot of the Mercury in Sagittarius, Mars in Sagittarius, Sun in Sagittarius square Saturn is going to be where a lot of this division that we're seeing is in a way being orchestrated and is trying to pin races and cultures and religions against each other. So whether you're talking about Israel and what happened with Hamas in Palestine, or we're talking about, what's been happening with the Black Lives Matter movement and their support supposedly of Hamas, or I think we're going to hear more about the George Floyd stuff. I mean, it has come out in this last month or so that there has been finally release of information from the autopsy from George Floyd that there was no indication of struggle. There was no indication of anything from the officer who's now spending 40 years in jail. He apparently is not reasoned to be the person who killed him with physical force. It was interesting to listen to the discussion of the jurors, and they were going back and forth saying, well, ultimately what we decided was that he didn't help him. He could see that he passed out, and that we had to hold him accountable because he didn't use the necessary assistance, I guess, to help him. But yeah, I mean, the back and forth of the discussion between the people involved in the case and also the autopsy is unbelievable. And when you learn more about it and hear that the media ran with the narrative that they wanted to paint it as, well, the cop killed him, not any of the other information about the lethal amount of fentanyl in his system or other, drugs that he had been using or his criminal past, it just was immediately, no, this white cop, killed this man, and created this whole cultural movement that has really, in many ways, been so significant over the last couple of years, and has created a lot of racial division, a lot of anger, a lot of hostility between groups. Come to find out also, a lot of the people at the top of the BLM movement, also a lot of issues in regards to finances and where that funding went and who got the money and the big businesses that were behind it that almost wanted to push and promote these black squares on Instagram and all of this stuff to seem like they were including. It was like virtue signaling, essentially. So now 3 years down the road, now we're seeing the effects of, this Mars, this Sun, this Mercury square Saturn and Neptune, and we see a lot of people who have cultural and religious divide right now, but they're trying to get certain groups to connect and unite. They're trying to connect somehow Ukraine to this business of what's going on in the Middle East and passing packages of money to be able to support both. We're seeing people who are on college campuses that are screaming that they're a part of Black Lives Matter, but they're supporting Hamas. We're also seeing a lot of conflict between people who were born in Israel who identify as, Jews, practicing Jews, but also want to show compassion and understanding for things that are going on in Palestine. It's a hot mess. And I think at the end of the day, what we're going to realize is that Saturn and Neptune represents this push globally to dissolve some of these barriers, to create confusion, whether it's gender or religion or culture. So everybody is fighting each other, right? And the question is whose fight is it to fight? That's what we're going to be talking a lot about when we start to see these squares between Neptune, Sun, and Mars. I have high hopes that Sag season is going to produce a lot of really amazing educators, teachers, philosophers, lawyers, judges, people who are really Sagittarian, who can help kind of appeal to everybody globally and say, look, we got to put our differences aside. We have to come together because this is all being orchestrated intentionally to dissolve things from the inside. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be a video that I'm definitely putting together. Watch for the checkpoint on the 23rd. On the 24th, we're then going to see Mars enter into Sagittarius, and it also will hit a square to Saturn. And Mars rules the North Node, guys, so there's going to be maybe travel challenges, delays, feisty ambitions with Mars in Sagittarius. We're feeling really restless and that we want to catch flights, not feelings. But the squares to Saturn is going to be us being told to slow our roll in some way, shape, or form. I'm watching airplanes, I'm watching pilots, I'm watching international travel. I do think that there is going to be some challenges in these departments. Maybe we'll hear some major scandal revolving around international relations or in regards to college admissions, maybe sports, college sports maybe. And on the 25th is when we see the Mars-Saturn square exact, and this is the same day that we are going to see Mercury retrograde shadow begin. So the Mercury retrograde, like I said, it'll start around mid-December, but it'll go from about 8 degrees of Capricorn to 22 degrees of Sag. If you have any planets around these degrees, Mercury will retrograde through those particular placements in your chart, reworking, reorganizing, rethinking, and honestly, it's going to be rather confusing because it will all come into a square with Neptune where it's distorted, we don't understand, there's something that's being falsely misrepresented, it's vague, there's going to be issues in regards to translation issues as well. And Neptune can represent screens and anything that's visual. So you guys want to be mindful that if you're resharing things that's in other languages, if you're seeing things and you're not seeing or reading it, appropriately, or maybe it's been edited or it's like AI, I think we're going to see some people who are going to definitely have some really extreme beliefs because of how something is portrayed. That's the best way I can kind of put it. But if you're somebody who's really particular about Mercury shadow, because sometimes we have the effects prior to the retrograde happening, you're going to start probably seeing some of the communication, travel, and relating breakdown start as early as the 25th. Too long, didn't listen. I would recommend try to either get your stuff done prior to the 25th of November, or maybe sign your stuff, agree to it, do your thing when it's Mercury trine the North Node. Or you can wait until after the retrograde. Mercury will go retrograde mid-December through January 1st. Maybe wait till Mercury gets back into Capricorn and make some sextiles to Saturn. Anyway, then we're going to see on the 27th, there will be a full moon in Gemini. All right, so this is going to be a full moon in Gemini featuring, there we go, featuring Mercury square Neptune, yuck, at 24 degrees. So not all new and full moons are created equal. This will be a full moon in opposition to Mars. Holy cow. And we're going to have Mars square Saturn, and we're going to have Mercury square Neptune. Trouble ahead, challenges ahead, limitations ahead. There's also going to be a lot of people being told, no, not yet. We can't tell you why, but this, that, and the other. And lots of song and dance that's kind of going on there. So for me, this is a full moon that's got me going like, am I reading this correctly? Like, is this real? Can I trust this? So watch that. That's going to be the second lunation of the month. And then finally, on the 29th of November, we are going to be experiencing Venus coming into conjunction with the South Node. And this is one that I almost missed on the horoscopes. I was like, is it going to conjunct? Is it not? I got it in there. Don't worry, guys. But this is important to watch because we're going to see Venus touch on the South Node and then come into a square with Pluto. So Venus kind of gets into some like hairy territory. My hot take on this is with Venus conjunct the South Node at a 24, dissolving, releasing, letting go of relationship karma. Things that we loved in the past may come back, people, places, things. But for me, it's like, it reminds me of that Adele song, like in the video where she picks up the phone and she goes, hello, it's me. I'm tone deaf, sorry, but you hear her, go into the, it's me from the other side. Okay, so the past could be calling, I guess is what I'm getting at. With Mercury in shadow and Venus conjunct the South Node, perhaps some people might be calling right when they need you the most. Is it the holidays and people are lonely? I don't know, maybe. But this is definitely kind of like tapping into stuff from the past. So watch for that when Venus touches on the South Node. But it can also be a time where people who are meant to come back to us, experiences with like soul connections with people from past lives, that could be coming in as well. I don't know, it's kind of weird, the conjunction in the square to Pluto, because I feel like there are some relationships that are in the final phases of just kind of shaking out. I think that could be happening too. Anyway, that's going to be the month. For a more detailed look, obviously go and take a look at your guys' horoscope for November of 2023. I'll be back here all throughout the next couple of weeks. We'll break this down as we go. I'll be back here on Tuesday, and I really want to tackle talking to you guys about this new moon in Scorpio, and we'll probably also talk about Venus changing signs as well this week. What's happening in your chart? Let me know. How are you feeling about the month ahead? What's your hot take on some of these transits? I'm really hoping it's a no shade November. We need some like calm in the cosmos. It would be nice after this last month or so. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you guys are feeling generous, you can always click on my link below. You can donate to my channel or join my memberships, making it possible for me to be a full-time content creator. Even if you can't share, even if you can't donate, no worries. Consider sharing this video and getting it out there because it does help with the channel, and any interaction with the channel helps it grow. So with that being said, I will catch you guys back here on Tuesday. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Relax, put on a face mask, do some self-care after this eclipse. Lord knows we all need a little bit of chill right now. And I'll catch you guys back here soon. Take care.